I never imagined that one set of keys could make me question everything I believed about my marriage. My name is Emily. I'm 34 years old, and until last spring, I thought I had a quiet, predictable life in Charlotte, North Carolina. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 9 years. We weren't perfect, but we respected each other. At least, that's what I believed. Daniel worked as a financial consultant. I was a project manager for a healthcare company. We had no children yet, but we had spent years saving for a home we loved. Every Sunday morning, we drank coffee on our back porch, talking about vacations we wanted to take someday. From the outside, our life looked steady. Then Daniel started changing. It wasn't dramatic. There were no lipstick stains or mysterious late-night phone calls. Instead, there were little things. He became distracted. Sometimes he'd stare at his phone without speaking. Other times he'd leave the room to answer calls that lasted only a minute. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd smile. Work has been stressful. I wanted to believe him. Marriage requires trust, and I never wanted to become the woman who searched through pockets or checked phone records. Still, something felt different. One Friday evening, Daniel told me he needed to drive across town to meet a client. "I'll only be gone an hour," he said. 3 hours passed. I texted him. No reply. Another hour. Finally, he came home carrying takeout. "I'm sorry," he said. The meeting ran long. I nodded. But the explanation didn't match the uneasy feeling sitting quietly inside me. Over the next month, those meetings became more frequent, sometimes twice a week, sometimes on weekends. Then I noticed something even stranger. His mileage didn't make sense. Daniel's office was 12 miles away. His client meetings were supposedly downtown, yet somehow his car showed an extra 100 miles every few days. I didn't ask, not because I wasn't curious, because I was afraid of the answer. One Saturday morning, Daniel forgot his wallet on the kitchen counter while he rushed out. I picked it up to place it in the drawer. That's when something slipped onto the floor. A silver key. Not a house key. Not our mailbox key. It looked like the kind used for apartment buildings. I held it for a long moment. When Daniel came home, I casually asked, "Did you get another storage unit?" He looked directly at the key, then back at me. "No, then what's this?" He hesitated for only a second. "Oh, that's for a client's office." His answer came too quickly. I handed it back. He slid it into his wallet immediately. That night, I barely slept. Every possibility raced through my mind. Another woman. A second life. A place where he went when he wasn't with me. I hated myself for thinking it. But once doubt enters your marriage, it becomes difficult to silence. A week later, I received an unexpected phone call. Our bank. The representative explained there had been unusual activity on one of our joint accounts and wanted to verify a transfer. I recognized the amount immediately. $12,000. My heart stopped. I hadn't approved any transfer. When Daniel came home that evening, I calmly asked about it. "Oh," he said casually, "investment opportunity." $12,000? I forgot to mention it. We had always discussed financial decisions together. Always, for the first time in our marriage, I felt excluded from my own future. That night, I opened our financial records. Several withdrawals caught my attention, small enough to avoid suspicion, large enough to matter. None had been discussed. The next morning, I asked him again. He smiled. "I've got everything under control." Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they frightened me, because they sounded less like reassurance and more like permission for me to stop asking questions. I couldn't. A few days later, Daniel left early for work. Instead of driving to my office, I sat in my car across the street for nearly 20 minutes. Then his SUV appeared. He drove in the opposite direction from downtown. I followed. not because I wanted proof of betrayal, because I needed peace. After 30 minutes, he turned into a quiet neighborhood filled with newer apartment buildings. My chest tightened. He parked, looked around, then used the same silver key to enter Building C. He disappeared inside. I waited in my car, unable to breathe. Every terrible possibility filled my mind. An affair, a secret family, another life. 45 minutes later, he walked back outside, carrying nothing. He drove away. I remained frozen. Finally, I walked toward the building. The property manager happened to be locking the leasing office. Trying to sound casual, I asked whether apartments there were individually owned or rented. She smiled politely, mostly rentals. I thanked her, then glanced toward Building C one last time. Apartment 214. The number was still fresh in my memory. I didn't knock. I wasn't ready. Instead, I drove home with one question echoing louder than every other thought. If my husband wasn't hiding another woman, then what was he hiding behind that apartment door? I spent the entire weekend debating whether I should go back to apartment 214. Part of me wanted answers immediately. Another part of me was afraid that opening that door would permanently change my marriage. On Monday afternoon, I left work early. I drove back to the apartment complex. This time, I walked straight to Building C, apartment 214. I stood outside for nearly a minute before knocking. No answer. I almost turned away when an older maintenance worker walked down the hallway. "Looking for someone?" he asked kindly. "I think my husband may know whoever lives here." He looked at the apartment. "Oh, the gentleman who rents this place doesn't stay much." My stomach tightened. "Do you know his name?" He checked a clipboard. "Daniel Carter. My husband." I thanked him and walked back to my car, barely able to think. Daniel wasn't visiting someone. He had rented the apartment himself. That evening, I didn't accuse him. I simply placed the silver key on our dining table. "I know about apartment 214. He froze. For the first time in years, he looked genuinely afraid. After a long silence, he sat down. "I should have told you. Then tell me now." He covered his face with both hands. "There isn't another woman." I waited. "I've been hiding debt." The words came quietly. Years earlier, before we met, Daniel had struggled with gambling. He had sworn he left it behind, and for most of our marriage, he had. Then work pressure increased. He convinced himself he could make quick money through risky online betting. Instead, he lost thousands. Ashamed, he took out personal loans without telling me. The apartment wasn't a love nest. It was where he met with a debt counselor and stored paperwork because he couldn't bear for me to discover it at home. "I thought I could fix it before you found out," he whispered, but every month it became worse. I listened without interrupting. His secret wasn't an affair. But it was still betrayal. Not because of the money, because he had decided our marriage could survive without honesty. For several days, we barely spoke. Friends assumed we were simply busy. No one knew our world had quietly cracked. Eventually, Daniel asked if I wanted a divorce. I answered honestly, "I don't know." Because I didn't. Trust isn't repaired by apologies. It's rebuilt through consistent truth. I met with a financial advisor on my own, then an attorney, not to file for divorce, but to understand my legal rights. For the first time in my life, I educated myself instead of depending on someone else's decisions. When I came home, I calmly explained my boundaries. We'll separate our finances. You'll continue counseling. There will be no more hidden accounts, loans, or decisions. And if honesty disappears again, I paused. I will. There was no anger in my voice, only certainty. Over the following year, Daniel attended counseling regularly. He shared every financial statement with me, every payment, every setback, every success. Slowly, trust returned, not because I forgot what happened, but because transparency replaced secrecy. The biggest lesson wasn't about debt. It was about dignity. I realized that self-respect doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes it means refusing to live in the dark. Love cannot grow where honesty is missing. Boundaries are not punishments. They're invitations for respect. Today, when I think about apartment 214, I don't remember fear. I remember the moment I stopped ignoring my instincts. Because asking difficult questions didn't destroy my marriage. Silence almost did. If this story touched you, please comment and subscribe. I have one question for you. Would you have knocked on the apartment door or confronted your spouse first? Let me know your answer below.